we all have needs. We have to provide for people. We have responsibilities, etc. So it's not so easy. But I learned the most fulfilling thing that we can do is be of value to each other. Try having any of those things when you're the only human on the planet. I love the film I Am Legend with Will Smith, right? Where he's the only human left. Imagine being him then and having a Lambo. No one cares.
Nobody cares.
You don't care either. All of our experiences are improved by us sharing them with other people.
Hello everyone, welcome to yet another episode of Slice of Nirvana, and today I have someone really interesting with me, Loui. He's a plant-based entrepreneur. We are going to have a wonderful conversation about what all Loui does. Hi Loui, thank you so much to come to our show today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Thank you. So Loui, tell us a little bit about what you do.
What do I do? Well, okay, so mostly I think about food from the perspective of planetary health, and planetary health means for me the symbiosis between individual health of humans and the health of our ecosystem.
Sure.
I believe that the two have to coexist. They're symbiotic in nature. It's impossible for us to have human health if we have water that isn't clean, air that isn't clean, soils that aren't abundant. And equally, humans that are feeling unhealthy in themselves, if they're not able to take care of themselves, they're probably not taking care of the planet.
Yeah.
And so my approach to business is very much through trying to create solutions to problems around planetary health. What that looks like at the moment is a number of different restaurant brands, food brands, and then I angel invest into companies that are solving problems that align with my values.
That's wonderful. So you came to Dubai 8 months back. To work at Expo, start something of your own. What is it?
Yeah, so I opened a restaurant here called PXB.
PXB?
PXB, yeah.
Oh, so cool, like DXB, PXB.
Exactly that. And the emphasis is on plant-forward food. So it's helping people make the transition to eating more plant-based food. And our philosophy is around promoting alkaline-forming foods.
Okay.
And so it's very kind of vegetable, fruit, legumes, seeds, kind of led, but in a way that's accessible and understandable to an audience. So we have a cafe, we have a rooftop restaurant, and we worked with a farm cooking workshops during COP28, which was recently in Dubai, which was a really exciting project to be part of as well.
And that's wonderful. Yeah. So do you have plans to expand it across Dubai?
Possibly.
Yeah.
Let's see. I mean, I think we spoke off camera about when I was younger in my early businesses. I've had businesses since I was 15 or 16 years old. It was all about growth at any cost. And I think that runs parallel to our kind of human need for all of our businesses to grow at all costs, which is part of the reason the planet's in the condition that it's in now, growth at all costs, right? So now I'm thinking about business a little bit differently and thinking about what success looks like. Success isn't necessarily for me growing this to 100 restaurants and having a big exit. It's more the daily impact that I can make through the restaurant, and that it remains aligned with what I'm about.
So you mentioned that growth. We are all running after growth in our daily life, and you very rightly mentioned that that's not something that you are exactly looking at now. So what is growth for you?
Well, we naturally grow anyway. Everything's changing. Nothing remains the same ever, right? We have to understand that everything is in a constant flux. Nothing is permanent at all in life, in business, in anything. So we're always growing in some way. Growth used to mean for me more revenue, more staff, more projects, more locations maybe if it was a physical business. Growth now is really about, okay, if our vision for this business is to impact people's health choices as it relates to food, can we impact more people? Can we do that in a better way? Can we, really think about the problem that we're solving and get kind of really into it? And that doesn't necessarily mean that the business has to be huge and sell. It just means that we show up every day, and that's what we work on.
First impressions, what are they for you?
I think we have to understand that we have a subconscious bias towards pessimism. And this is something that's been naturally ingrained as part of our means of survival, right? You had to be naturally pessimistic in history because round every corner could be an enemy or something that posed you danger. So I think we're wired to be pessimistic in how we perceive things. I think the measurement is how quickly we can move from pessimism to openness in how we perceive situations, people, whatever. So first impressions for me, I try to be aware and conscious of my perhaps negative first impression, catch myself and try to have an open mind about things. I very much believe that everything that happens is happening for us in some way, whether it's we can see it as a positive in the moment or whether it takes us 6 months, 2 years, 5 years to realize it was a positive.
For a reason?
For a reason, of course. Yeah, I believe there's some balance and harmony between things written in a certain way and our ability to choose.
So do you believe in the higher vibrations? Like when you connect with a person or, the first impressions that we're talking about, do you connect with the energy of that person? Like what is your first take when you meet a new person, for example?
I think our ability to feel and sense that energy which permeates everything is directly correlated with our ability to feel into ourselves. And this is why diet and food and consumption for me is so important. The clearer my vessel, the more able I am to perceive the energy of another person and have a higher state of awareness, right? So that's why I eat organic, whole food, alkaline, intermittently, not to the point where I'm bursting at the seams, etc. But certainly, as I've been pursuing that, I reckon I'm able to get a better sense of people. That gut feeling that we all know that we have at times, I'm more in tune with that. And I think it's kind of self-fulfilling. It compounds,
it's a process, right? To get to that feeling.
But the more you listen to it, the more you're rewarded with more.
The more you're aware of what's happening.
The more you're aware. So for sure, and everyone's felt that. You've got onto maybe a busy train and somebody's made you feel uncomfortable, or you've walked down a street at night and you get a sense that something's not right. We all have that innate ability, but I think we're more able to tap into it when we
don't tune into it organically always. We kind of, stay away from it. But I think when you are in this space of being aware what's happening around you, I think this energy is very easy to be tuned into.
The more open you are,
for you're more open to it.
For sure.
So 10 years back, you turned, completely vegan or plant-based, I should say. What is it? Why plant-based? Like, what changed in you that time?
Mine was a very sudden change. I was in London and I had chronic fatigue and burnout. I was in my mid-20s. I'd kind of ticked a lot of the boxes of, I guess, what society will tell you that success means. Nice car, nice house, expensive clothes, expensive holidays, good business, partying, buying whatever you want. It was pretty empty. And it took me a while to realize that. And I just realized I was very unhappy.
So you realized it in your 20s, which is great.
Mid-20s, I was very unhappy.
People are still figuring at 40,
I think we all have our own process to go through, right? But I was very unfulfilled. I didn't feel good in my body. I knew something wasn't right.
Sure.
So I went on a retreat, was in a ceremony, shall we say.
Okay.
And I had just this overwhelming sense of the impact that I was making on myself, on other people, on the planet through my unconscious behaviors. So eating a lot of meat, eating a lot of animal products, not taking care of my body, not taking care of anyone around me or paying attention to my environment at all. And I just had this vision where I couldn't eat animals anymore. It was really clear to me that if I eat animals, I take on the energy of that animal. No animal that's made for food wants to die, and I'm ingesting that when I eat an animal. And it was just one day just stopped eating animals completely. And it was a real pivotal shift. And I could no longer work in the businesses that I had because they were purely for money and very unconscious. And I basically 360'd completely everything I was doing. And it was so clear to me that this plant-based, more compassionate, more sustainable approach to business, to life, was something that I had to go all in on. And I just went all in.
Wow. Quite a journey, I would say. Have you seen the Netflix documentary, which is about veganism, The Game Changer? And what's your perspective on that? Does it resonate with you, actually?
Yeah, of course. So I've got a personal relationship there because I recently invested in the first company by the founder, James, who's launched a vegan protein company in the US, which has some proprietary kind of technology related to it and is amazing. Name is Fyta, Fyta. But Game Changers, I think, took a very interesting approach in terms of how it reflected the athletic performance benefits of the plant-based diet, something that I'd experienced myself, something that many people I know had experienced in professional sports and general kind of everyday training and gym going. And it presented data. I think it presents it in a very compelling way. Obviously, with all documentaries, it's presenting one position. But after the documentary, James actually went on a popular podcast on Joe Rogan's podcast and had a live discussion with a doctor who was trying to dispel a lot of the things, and he had an answer for everything. So I'm a big fan of James and his work, and I think the documentary is great. And the second one's coming out soon as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so that's going to be very interesting. It made a big impact on a lot of people.
Sure. So the first month when you actually started the plant-based diet, how did you feel about it? What changed in you? What were the changes that you observed?
I became a lot more conscious of the foods that I was eating.
Okay.
Eating prior to that was a very unconscious act. It was one that was done to network, to meet people at dinners, very unconscious. I wasn't thinking about the food when I was eating, but it got me into cooking because I had to it was very difficult to eat plant-based in London at that time. There was only a few places you could go. So I became very interested in food, in nutrition, on the impact on the body. The first month, my energy levels increased, my skin improved, my sleep improved. I was eating significantly more fruits, vegetables, natural foods. So my energy levels were fantastic.
Did it also lead to emotional and mental, stability or any kind of change that you felt emotionally?
I was angry.
Oh, you were angry?
Yeah, because I felt like I'd been lied to my whole life. I became aware of this food system that just made no sense. We had 25,000 children starving every day. We grow enough food to feed the entire population many times over. But we direct those grains, those crops through animals so that we can have a ham sandwich at lunch. It just didn't make any sense. And obviously there's economic complexity to that in terms of how those logistics are figured out. But it just didn't make sense to me how we were currently eating. And so I was frustrated, that I'd been eating that way that I just didn't feel it was right. And there was a lot of frustration, but what there was at the same time that ran parallel to that was I'd been trying to meditate for years. And it's something that I did when I was a kid, actually. I got into meditation when I was much younger. But then I kind of stopped when I was in my 20s. For the first time, I had this clarity of thought. The brain fog started to go, and I could sit, and that became much easier. So that was an interesting impact.
That's interesting, actually. And did you become more empathetic while you were going through this journey?
For sure. I'd say I had a pretty low level of empathy prior to that. It was very much, I was in a fear mindset. When you're in a fear mindset, you assume that there is just a lack, and you're trying to hold on to things. You're not trying to do things for other people. You're in this state of like not having enough. And it causes you to be less empathetic in your actions, in the things that you do. And certainly when I started to understand the impact that I was having on other people, on animals, this world of compassion, I prefer compassion to empathy, because I'm not trying to take on that energy from an empathy perspective, but I'm trying to have compassion for that journey, right? So it certainly made me more compassionate. It's made me connect everything I do and the impact it has to other people. When I go to a shop and I buy an animal product, there's a life that has to end for me to have that product, and just how unnecessary it is, and the impact of when I do things that affects the environment, how that affects things for me, but for everyone else, and how we are part of nature. We're not this separate thing. That the English dictionary definition of nature is all that exists except for humans, but we're part of this ecosystem. And so I start to see myself as part of that, and when I harm the world, when I harm anyone else, I'm harming myself. And so it was an overwhelming
position.
With the for sure, but that's difficult as well, right? Because as your awareness expands, you feel everything more. You feel more compassion, but with that comes you feel the suffering of that's abundant everywhere. And so it's It's a process.
So your work, I feel that it's pretty much related to your life, like
course.
what you really believe in.
Of course.
You're working towards it. So is there a day where you feel I don't want to go to work?
Not really.
No.
I only work on things that I care about and that I love, and sometimes we're forced in the position to make a difficult choice, right?
Yeah.
Can we all have needs. We have to provide for people. We have responsibilities, etc. So it's not so easy, but that was a real driver for me. I have to work on something that I believe in that makes a difference. I can't sit at a desk and do something monotonous which isn't making any difference to anyone. It's a waste of potential. We all have this energy, this vitality that we can contribute something with. And a lot of the time, if you're just sitting there, you couldn't pay me 100 million a year to sit behind a desk for 8 hours a day. For what? To go and spend it on a weekend in a bar, to buy expensive clothes, to have a Lamborghini.
Yeah.
Empty.
Yeah, it
But
is
no
empty.
interest.
Yeah.
No interest, because I know it doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
And I was fortunate to have experiences at a younger age where I learned that isn't fulfilling.
Yeah.
I learned the most fulfilling thing that we can do is be of value to each other. Try having any of those things when you're the only human on the planet. I love the film I Am Legend with Will Smith, right, where he's the only human left. Imagine being him then and having a Lambo. No one cares.
Nobody cares.
You don't care either. All of our experiences are improved by us sharing them with other people. So it's really about how do we impact the lives of others through our work.
One of our Indian cricketer, Virat Kohli, he turned vegan. He turned plant-based, and he's one of the fittest cricketer in the world. Do you follow him, and what do you think about this trend of veganism, among the athletes, the top athletes of the world?
I think at the top level across all sports, it's tiny percentages make a big difference. There's not a lot in it between the top guys, so they're always looking for competitive advantages. Sure. And I've seen this in football, I used to work in football actually. So I've seen this in football, and the reason that athletes are getting a benefit, if I break it down in the simplest terms, is that your ability to improve your fitness levels is correlated with your ability to recover and train again. So recovery is super important, right? If you are eating alkaline forming foods, which are vegetables, fruits, legumes, some grains, seeds, etc., your body is able to recover quicker. Essentially, we're looking for anti-inflammatory foods to aid recovery. Now, it's a balance. People talk so much about macronutrients, protein, carbs, fat, and so little about micronutrients. Are your levels of iron sufficient? Is your magnesium sufficient? All of these things are important, and these are abundant in fruits and vegetables. They're also in meat, but the difference is the package that it comes in. Meat is highly acidic to the body. So you're in a more inflammatory state when you consume protein via animal products than via
plant-based
plants, right? So athletes are recognizing now that if they're eating plant-based foods, typically, and for many, the recovery is much quicker, and they can get the same level of nutrients that they can.
So if, say, hypothetically, if the world turns plant-based, how would it affect the ecological system?
So we would free up huge areas of lands for natural habitat. So I'll give you a statistic. 95% of the cumulative biomass on the planet of mammals now comes from products of industrial animal agriculture. 95% of the cumulative biomass. Think about that.
Wow.
That's essentially what we're saying is that 95% of land mammals are now bred for food for human consumption. Now, if you think about nature being an intelligent creator, it's done millions of years of R&D to create a perfect ecosystem where everything's in balance. Levels of animals, of plants, everything's this perfect harmony. We've come in the last 100 years and just completely disrupted that harmony, right? We have now created a need for all of those animals to eat. So when people complain about vegans eating soy, for example, most soy crop goes towards animal feed. So we've got an abundant amount of animals bred for food who require feeding. So we're clearing huge areas of natural habitation to grow food. Most of that is monocropping, where one crop grows at once. And to be able to have monocropping, we also need to have pesticides, herbicides, because we've removed the ecological balance that prevents those crops from being eaten. So you have huge areas cleared with a single crop, with herbicides, pesticides, harmful sprays and chemicals going in. It runs off into the ocean, it kills ocean wildlife, it kills wildlife on the land. It's an ecological disaster. So what would happen if the world went plant-based? What would happen, not necessarily, the world doesn't even need to go 100% plant-based. We just need to shift our consumption towards eating more whole plant foods. We'd have more land for natural habitats. We'd have improved water. We'd have improved oceans. We'd have improved carbon dioxide levels. There's a huge impact that would happen. And the fact is that the current way that we feed people is not sustainable. You have a number of things happening. You have a growing global population. You have that population growing in economic ability to afford the Western diet, which is so popularized. More people eating more meat means more crops that need to be grown, which means more pesticides, more herbicides, more ocean runoff, more fish that need to be caught. This is not sustainable. We're going to run out of all of the Earth's resources to be able to sustain this diet for people. So what happens when we shift to plant-based? We have improved air quality, improved water quality, improved soil quality, and that requires a shift back to organic, multi-layered agroforestry style systems, but that's a whole other conversation. But essentially, we have an improved environment for us all to thrive within. We have improved human health from more of an abundance of plant foods. And we have a more balanced ecosystem for animals, and the wildlife can start to return. Animal agriculture, industrial animal agriculture is the leading cause habitat destruction, ocean dead zones, carbon emissions. It's the most destructive thing that's happening on the planet at the moment, and people cannot relate that to their choice when they go to a restaurant and they're ordering a burger. Get a plant-based burger. It tastes the same. Mm-hmm. It's still not good for you. I'm not saying it's good for you, but neither is a burger. You know?
You mentioned about save soil, and the quality of soil. So one of our spiritual gurus in India, his name is Sadhguru. He's running a campaign called Save Soil. Have you heard of it? And what's your take on that?
It's one of the most important things that we should be focused on right now. If you think about problems facing humanity, never mind going to Mars or anything else, it's the soil on this planet. If we can't grow food, we are in real trouble. I mean, the soil's already depleted, right? So it's the reason that so many people are taking supplements, because they're not getting the same levels of nutrients from the food they're eating, because the soil is depleted. Also, when you're eating inorganic food, which means that herbicides, pesticides, or it's been genetically modified, it doesn't have the same level of nutrients in. So we're seeing nutrient deficiencies. This is a health risk. We're also, the issue with soil being that for so long we've had this, which comes from a great place. We want to feed a lot of people, but the way we've gone about it isn't in sync with nature. Growing single crops is not in sync with nature. It's just not. And so farming practices need to be updated, which they are. Sure. And I think the campaign that Sadhguru is on with Save Soil is putting it front of mind, which is really, really important.
In fact, they were at COP28
They were
well.
at COP28. They were, yeah.
The way world is embracing plant-based diet, do you think there is a rapid commercialization that could be dangerous?
I think we have to make the distinction between vegan and plant-based.
Yeah.
So a vegan diet is one that doesn't use animal products.
Sure.
A plant-based diet, and again, the term is being misused in many cases because there's no clarity on what it actually means, but it's, for me, whole food plant-based. So that's using the whole plant. And the issue with vegan diet is that we're continuing the same problem we have as it relates to food, but we're just shifting the packaging that it's in. So a vegan cheese, for example, as we spoke about, is no healthier than an animal cheese, really. They're both not healthy, right? If you're taking huge levels of saturated fat, highly processed ingredients, we're not solving the health problem that we have. It can be a means of getting people to that, and I think there is a role to play, for example, for plant-based alternatives to shift people from a very meat-intensive diet, which is certainly better for the environment if they're eating the plant-based version. But I think where we have to get towards is people eating whole food, plant-based diets, and that's where we're going to have the biggest health benefits and solve a lot of the nutrient deficiencies which are causing big problems at the moment. We have levels of obesity, which is coming from
Yeah.
processed food, lots of saturated fats, lots of sugars, and these are abundant in a lot of these kind of vegan foods, which are the result, as you say, of commercialization. Goes back to our initial point around growth at all costs. Growth that doesn't consider human health, planetary health, or anything else is going to always give outcomes that benefit shareholders and the market, not the people that make that up. And so we have to shift away from that kind of paradigm and that way of thinking.
Now, Dubai is focusing a lot on fitness and wellness in general. What do you think, that are they accepting plant-based diet here? Or do you think there's a huge scope where you can see people turning, more towards plant-based diet?
I think I found it to be very open-minded here, which is amazing, right? I think it's a relatively young country, and I found the attitude of people to be quite open. So certainly it's not something that I impose on people at dinner parties, but if someone asks me, like, you're not eating the meat, I'm plant-based. People are very open-minded when they ask me why. And I've had a few interactions with people where they've actually started to eat plant-based after I've met them. So I found people to be open-minded. I don't think it's perhaps as far along as it is in the UK. It's certainly not as contentious an issue as it is in the UK, because you can get met with some real kind of like people that feel strongly against it. But very open-minded to it, and that goes hand in hand with what you said about the growth in the wellness space here, which is amazing to see. More people running, participating in yoga, being active.
You have been running marathons in 7 Emirates. Tell us about that.
Okay, I'll tell you about that quickly. So I completed a challenge a few weeks ago where I ran an ultra marathon, 50 kilometers every day for 7 days in a row across each of the 7 Emirates, raising funds for the Sudan refugee crisis. So able to help, I think, almost 800 families in Sudan through the money that was raised. But it was a challenge.
So you came up with the idea?
Yeah, my friend Stefan and I finished a 105 kilometer ultra marathon race in Tuscany last year, or year before last. And we were just thinking, okay, what's next? Let's do something here in the UAE. And what would be harder than running 100k at once? Running 300.
So are you planning to make it like a proposition every year, or?
We're going to do something bigger next year.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Amazing.
I can't really say what yet, but it's going to be something bigger. And for me, it's about, I think that we've been blessed with these like amazing bodies that we're in, right? That are infinitely more capable than we realize. And we're all capable of so much more than we realize. So I wanted to see if I could push myself beyond to a point where I want to stop and then go beyond it. And in some kind of sadistic way, I'm looking to get myself to the point where I want to quit and I've had enough. And I got to that point.
So when you prepare for marathons, like 50 kilometers a day for 7 days, it's a lot. If someone has to, say, start running, do they need to prepare, like, do they need to work on their bodies before that?
Anyone can start running, right? And you can start running 1 kilometer, 1.5, 2 kilometers. You can do walk. You walk 500 meters, run 500 meters.
That's what I do.
Yeah, and it's great, right? Yeah. And then as you get into it more, you start to do mobility work. We talked about Pilates being great for it. Yoga's great for it. Strengthening, supporting muscles around your knees, your ankles, etc. as you go the longer distances. But when you're running that distance, it's about injury prevention mostly. Sure. I mean, I trained for 9 months, but on day 4 I got injured. I couldn't touch my foot to the ground. And I was having a shooting pain going up my leg. I called my physio in the middle of day 4 and said, I've got 25 kilometers left to go today. What do I do? And he said, if you really want to finish, tape your ankle in a fixed position so your foot doesn't have to flex, and walk on a treadmill because it's softer. So I walked 25 kilometers in 5 hours on a treadmill.
Oh, wow.
Went that evening back to Dubai to get treatment on my leg, needling, localized cryo, 7 hours sleep. Next morning, 20 kilometers in, same thing happened again. I walked the last 30 kilometers. And then on day 6 and day 7, I just had this overwhelming feeling of, like, I guess, adrenaline, because I was able to run. And I would encourage everyone that hasn't tried.
So along with running, you do Pilates, you mentioned.
It's my new thing.
Oh, it's your new
Reformer,
favorite.
yeah.
So yoga also you've practiced in the...
I have in the past.
Okay.
But now I'm in this beautiful space. I think I want to come back to it.
Okay, now it's time for Speedy Nirvana. It's a rapid fire round. I'm going to ask you some questions and you can give short answers. Shall we start?
Okay, sure.
5 plant-based facts you would like to present for those who don't know?
Okay, I'll do this in response to questions that I get asked all the time. So, where do you get your protein from is a very current one. Plant-based sources, tempeh, tofu, different beans, lentils, spirulina, chlorella, plant-based protein powders, clean label, we're looking at the clean label ones there, different seeds, pumpkin seeds, different nuts, Brazil nuts, almonds. It's a huge range of plant-based sources.
Wow. A 7-course vegan tasting menu for a recently turned vegan who was a hardcore carnivore. What would it look like?
Okay, wow, the whole menu. Okay. So we've been working a lot with mushrooms recently, and we've been making lion's mane steaks. There's a guy in the UK, American guy, Derek Sarno, who started making these amazing mushroom steaks. So you take a lion's mane mushroom. It's a local brand here called Below Farms who sell them. They're amazing. Lion's mane mushroom. You put 2 pans either side, you squash it and you cook it. And you put your favorite sauce you'd have on a barbecue. And it literally cuts, tastes, breaks like a steak.
Wow.
It's incredible. So for people that like eating meat, I would go for a lion's mane steak as the hero dish in that menu.
A chef you would like to collaborate for a tasting session, and why?
You know what? I've worked with a lot of my, I guess, heroes in this space already. I've done some cool stuff with a lot of my friends and people that I look up to in this space. My friend Kirk Hayworth is, for me, one of the best plant-based chefs in the world at the moment. He's just been on TV in the UK on Great British Menu. He is really pushing the limits in terms of what can be done with plants. So probably Kirk, yeah.
Your one-sentence message to those who reckon plant-based diet as a fad.
It's the future. If you try it, you'll know why.
How many tattoos do you have, by the way? I just remembered. I forgot to ask you this.
I think they've all joined at this point. It's just one.
Oh, so it's all.
It's just one tattoo.
Oh, wow.
It's front leg. I'm working on the other leg now, so it's just all one.
Does it say something about you?
I think about tattoos as ways to capture moments in time. And when I think about each one, I can remember what I was thinking, feeling at that time. And when you look at it through that lens, you don't regret any, because it was where you were at that moment. So I don't have any regrets about any of them. The most recent one I got was that one, which is also the most painful one I've ever had.
To do it here, yeah.
In the palm of the hand, yeah.
Okay. Given the power to remove one form of eating and dietary pattern from the world, what would it be?
I have to say animal products. And I know though you get this thing of, people, you need meat to survive. There is nothing in meat that you cannot get from plants, or and I have to caveat that with, or cannot supplement. Now I say supplement because B12 you would get from animal meat, but I don't supplement B12, and I get blood tested every 6 months, and my B12 is in optimal range. It's connection with soil. We used to be connected to the soil. You would pull vegetables out of the ground, you'd wash, you'd eat the vegetables, you'd get some B12 from the soil. The soils are depleted, and we live in a sterile environment. This is why some people can be B12 deficient. The fact is now, because of soil degradation, almost everyone needs to supplement, unless you're eating a high volume of diverse plant foods. Sure. Now, my diet may sound extreme to a lot of people, but I probably eat 40 to 50 different plants every week. I sometimes eat 30 to 40 different plants a day. So I'm getting a diverse range of vitamins, minerals. At the moment, I currently only supplement amino acids, which again, everyone probably should. I supplement an omega-3 and DHA oil, and I supplement a vitamin D supplement with vitamin K, with fats, and a vitamin C daily. Everyone should be taking vitamin C daily. Our body's not good at retaining it, and you need it. So you can do that through fruits that are high in vitamin C. You've also got veggies like bell peppers are great for vitamin C. But you should be really taking vitamin C every single day. It's really important.
Okay. Now these are just one-word answers.
Okay.
Love is
connection.
Life is
experience.
Passion is
openness.
Sensuality is
presence.
Nirvana in a sentence for you
is right now.
Thank you so much, Loui. What a wonderful conversation we had, and I cannot emphasize enough on plant-based diet too. I'm a vegetarian by birth, I would say. So I totally agree with what you said, and I hope a lot more people listen to it and find some connection there. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
This was a wonderful conversation with Loui, and after this conversation, I feel that there is so much that we all can contribute to the environment and world in general, right? From the plant-based diet to taking care of our body, the emotional health, the mental health. There is a lot of work that can be done in the space that you resonate with. So I hope you find it interesting, and looking forward to your feedback. See you on the next show.